how bad the analytics were. I haven't read the whole article. I've just seen snippets of it. So let's get into it and see what we can take from it.
The article is titled, "How Bad Analytics Built a Tottenham Team That Might Get Relegated." And a lot of people have been talking about this article. Essentially, what it posits is Tottenham have been using the data wrong, or using bad data to come to the wrong conclusion. What it's led to is Spurs having a very imbalanced squad. Some of the kind of snippets you've taken from this article are the fact that they go into how data is used to analyze football, and how basically by and large a lot of people, overlook or like the common fan when they talk about like expected goals. And I think it's common knowledge. It's not the best team. The best team doesn't always win in football. I think everyone who watches football, who's seen football over a long stretch of time, knows that the best team doesn't always win. It's always the team who creates the better chances, who are usually more likely to win. And over a large stretch of time, it kind of bears out in the data where everyone's kind of XG is always quite similar. There are obviously outliers, but over a long stretch of time, the expected goals does generally line up to how many goals you do score and do concede. He actually brought an example of over since 2010 they did an analysis.
Can we bring this up on the screen?
Yeah, I sent him the article. If you can open it up. This is quite interesting. He did an analysis of every Premier League team. So scroll down to there's a graph. He did an analysis of every Premier League team since 2010, and on the left is how many teams are in the certain categories, and on the bottom it's their goal difference minus the expected goal difference. And as you can see, most teams are in that centre, which is basically plus or minus like 5 goals compared to your goal difference XG. There's only one team since 2010 who have had basically a plus 30 of their goal difference compared to their XG.
Does it say who that was, or it doesn't say?
It does.
Oh, is it Tottenham?
It was Tottenham. It was Tottenham back in 16-17.
That's Son Heung-min.
And Kane.
Yeah.
So I think, well, first of all, that shows, I find that quite interesting, because what that shows is we massively overperformed that season. Like, as much as we were a very good team.
17.
That's the season we got 86 points.
Yeah, that was the Chelsea,
Yeah, last season at the Lane.
Yeah.
What the data shows there is we actually massively overperformed more than any other team since 2010.
If you look at a lot of goals, you can reel them off your head. Like, a lot of goals that we scored were outside the box, with Dele Alli, Christian Eriksen, Sonny, Kane.
Okay, yeah, for sure. So what's interesting about that is we overperformed, but because we overperformed, maybe we gave ourselves false expectations of how good we were. And obviously we ended up declining over those next few years, didn't we? But I think the point being is, the point the article was making with that bar is...
So how many over were we?
30.
Wow.
Yeah, we massively overperformed. We were a plus 30 on our goal difference compared to our expected goal difference was.
When did XG records begin?
I think they officially began being in 2016, about then actually. But I think they can there are people who've retroactively gone and analysed games and added XG to them and stuff like that.
So when's this? This is since 2010.
This is since 2010. Yeah. The point this graph was making is, when you look, there's one team who's right down on the left, and it's minus 30. There's only one team who's minus 30. You think, who could that be? And a lot of people thinking, is that Tottenham? This season, but actually it's not. It's Sheffield United from a couple of years ago. The point being is,
when they finished bottom.
Yeah, the point saying they underperformed their XG by 30.
That's crazy.
Yeah, which is not.
Who do they have up front?
No, it's not just about scoring. It's also conceding as well. So they probably conceded more than they should have, and they scored. It's a goal difference of 30. It's a goal difference of 30 from the XG. The point being is, Tottenham this season are actually roughly where we expect them to be. We're actually in that about the bar near the middle, because our XG difference is minus 11, sorry, our goal difference is -11 and our XG difference is -15. So we're actually overperforming where we should be. We're actually better. We're actually doing better than what our data suggests. So the point is that this is not a fluke where we are. It's not unlucky. Last season, if you look at the difference, I think we massively underperformed and our data was a lot better than where we should have been. It wasn't like amazing, but it was like mid-table rather than 17th. Whereas now, we are literally, the data is telling us we are a relegation team. Yeah. That is what the data is telling us, and that's what we are. So they're saying, why is that? Why are we so bad? Why? How have they come to that conclusion? And they said, it says Tottenham's major issue, if you scroll down, it says Tottenham's major issue is they can't pass. Usually, football is a complex, dynamic game where individual qualities are impossible to extract from independencies of roster construction, managerial instructions, and on-field interactions. Basically saying it's very difficult to judge a player just on their data when you don't take the wider context into account. But sometimes you get a team like Tottenham where the diagnosis is pretty simple. These guys can't pass.
You're telling me Danny Kyriakou right.
He's saying that they've come up with this metric for passing, and basically how it works is, for example, he says how the metric works is, for example, let's consider a centre back passes the ball on the halfway line, a routine a pass under no pressure to an open teammate which doesn't move the ball up the pitch. That would give you a score of 0 for that pass, because it's just like it's a pass that doesn't really help. It's just under no pressure. You pass it to a teammate, doesn't really. But if you do like a line breaking pass that gets you up the pitch, or a pass under pressure that finds a teammate, you get a positive mark for that. So they've done a whole analysis over the Premier League for these passing metrics, and what they found is Tottenham's top 5 passers in their team are and where they rank in the league. Romero is our number 1, and he's 19th in the league. Yeah. Van de Ven is our second best passer, and he's 87th in the league. Destiny Udogie is our third best at 152nd in the league. Danso is our 4th best at 167th.
How is Danso our 4th best passer?
167th as well.
Yeah, but like Danso's not a good passer.
No, and Kudus is our 5th best at 186th. So what that tells you is, first of all, we have 2 players in the whole division in the top 150 best passers in the league when it comes to actual passes that affect the game and actually move the ball forward. Also, what tells you is in our top 5, we don't have any midfielders.
Yeah, but also
midfielders.
This is very much, you got to caveat the tactics that we were playing and the instruction from
absolutely
Thomas Frank all season. So
absolutely,
it's not directly based on the quality of the player.
No, yeah, you're right, but the reality is, though these are the facts. This is what we are not passing the ball, like anywhere near, which we know it was very different under Ange than it was under Frank.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. And
I don't know what the scores would have been under Ange.
The tactics under Thomas Frank, we were pretty much not using the midfield to pass. Really, we were just getting out wide and going down the flanks.
He says the conclusion he makes is passing is the fundamental skill in the sport. The average Premier League team attempts 450 passes per game. Nothing else comes close. In a single game, the average team attempts 8 shots, crosses the ball 18 times, and tries dribbles about 18 times, attempts 16 tackles, and makes 8 interceptions. If you can't pass the ball, then nothing else matters. It's the force at the heart of the game that gives everything else meaning. So how has Tottenham, one of the richest club, got into this position where they only have 2 players in the top 150 passes in the league? And there he says it's basically we've been using data wrong. We've been using data to come to the wrong conclusions.
It's interesting that as well, before you go on, because Spurs made a whole song and dance, didn't it, about Spurs are going to go into the data-led approach now when we're coming into the new era, when a lot of clubs have been doing it prior. And everyone's like, all right, great, should have done it a long time ago, but it's great that we're going down a more modern route and everything like that. But nobody actually spoke about, how this data is going to be sourced, who's providing the data, what data we actually using, who's the guys looking at the data to actually implement it well enough. There's so much more to go into it than just like a data-led approach, you know what I mean?
data helps you find what you want, but you got to know what you want.
Exactly.
And it seems as though we don't. He says,
Apparently my mic is off.
was it? Oh. He says, how to explain what has happened with Tottenham. Tottenham have a roster filled with explosive athletes who can run using their physical metrics gradient created an athleticism score that's a combo of endurance, explosiveness, speed that adjusts for position and size. So apparently they've created this score that measures physical traits. And Tottenham have 7 players who perform at a 90 or above in their squad, and that's Odegaard, Bergvall, Gray, Solanke, and Conor Gallagher. Sorry, they have 7 in their squad. 5 of them, Odegaard, Bergvall, Gray, Solanke, and Gallagher, were signed after Johan Lang came the club's technical director in October 2023. The first 4 were the 4 outfield players signed during Lang's first summer in charge. You can't build a roster that can't pass unless you're systemically focused on a set of alternative player attributes that create an institutional blind spot. Given that Romero and Maddison were signed in 21, and Maddison, who's been injured all season, was signed in 23, the ignorance of what actually ignorance of what actually matters becomes even more stark. So he's suggesting that ever since Lang has come in, we have players who perform really well in data, but it's like physical data that they're performing well in, and they've completely ignored players who actually perform the very fundamental task of what we need, is that players passing the ball effectively. And our 2 best passers were signed before Lang came in. Since Lang has come in, clearly we focused on this players who perform very well with these physical traits. That's what he's been brought in. That's what he's got. And yet, this team are left with 2 players in the top 150 who can pass the ball. And he's also positing that we use data to retroactively justify the decisions we make, rather than using data to then sign players. We don't make decisions based on data. We use data to justify the decisions that we make.
It's just ridiculous. The whole thing is just ridiculous. Like, how can you not be looking at every single metric of the data and just be looking at one aspect to sign players? And then how can you not even be using the data to sign the players? You just use it after to say, oh, look, this guy's a good player. I back my decision. The whole thing's ridiculous.
And we've been saying that I think everyone's been saying for a few years we need passes in that middle. I think a lot of Tottenham fans have been saying that. And we know we've been given Paulinho and Gallagher and, these are maybe the main signings, haven't they, in the last few years? Especially, it was very clear under Ange we needed more passing ability because that's what the system demanded. Like a lot better ability to control games and a lot better actually the passing. And yet it's just not something we've been focusing on, and we've been getting more and more physicality, yet we've been maybe demanding them to play certain passes, especially when Ange and now De Zerbi's here. We've been asking them to play more of a passing game, and yet we haven't been focusing on our recruitment on getting that passing ability through the door. And we've been
we played a passing game under Ange.
That's what I'm saying, but we haven't been focused on getting passes into the team through recruitment. We've been focusing on physical. And he's saying under Johan Lang, we've signed all these players who perform in the top 90th whatever metric for physicality, yet we're not focused on whether they pass well. And I think that you can see at the moment, we look at a team and they can't string 2 passes together. Now, why is that? And I'm not necessarily saying it's because they're the worst passers in the world, but when we're not focused on, the data clearly isn't focused on bringing in the best passers. And that's part of the problem. You have to marry up the physicality with someone who has a bit more technical ability in their passing game.
Yeah, look, that our players are not the best in terms of that aspect, but it makes a whole lot worse with the tactics and the coaching that was put into the team this season. Our players looked a lot better at passing through the middle than they did last season than they did through this season. They looked a lot better at 2 years ago. They look at it this season. For me, a big part of it is coaching. And these players, we're talking about their lack of ability to play a 5-yard pass and to consistently progress the ball forward. For me,
yes, we need better. Yes, we need better profiles in there. And yes, the data can help us to source those players. But they're nowhere near as bad as what they've been showing this season. For me, this season has mainly been a coaching error.
Yeah, but even what we saw under Ange last season, right, when certain players weren't available, we really suffered for it, especially Romero and Van de Ven, two of our best, well, clearly apparently two of our best passers. Like, we have needed.
So what you're saying is, so you're saying, according to this article, Danny's right. Danny's been saying these players can't pass, and we've been arguing it all season.
He might have a point, according to this. He might have a point that they really lack the fundamental passing quality, and that I think they've clearly been underperforming even what they've been playing, but I think we've needed more passing ability, and it clearly hasn't been one of the, in terms of recruitment, it hasn't been one of the priorities, and it should be. It should be the priority in the.
Regardless, it wasn't even a priority in our setup this season. So I think it's really hard to.
No, but his point is, when we had Ange, and Ange's first summer, we signed Odebear, Bergval, Gray, Solanke, and Gallagher. Not Gallagher, and Solanke.
Lange's first summer.
Lange's first summer, Ange's second.
Ange. Yeah.
Second.
Yeah.
And he said the metric they perform best at is these physical ones.
I feel like Gray's a good passer, though.
That's not his strength. I don't think that's his best strength.
I think he's a good passer, though. It might not be his strength, but I think he's a good passer. Do you not think he's a good passer?
Did we sign him because he performs really well with his passing, or did we sign him because he's really good at driving the ball? He's really good at receiving the ball under pressure.
I think we signed him because he's a young player with that will have a potentially high sell-on value.
Well, I don't think we signed him for his passing. I'm not saying he's a bad passer. I don't think he's a particularly great passer, to be honest. I haven't seen anything. I'm not saying he's bad, but I've seen him do some nice switches of play and stuff like that. But I've seen some other younger players who are probably, someone like, I know Wharton's maybe a bit older, but like Wharton, he's not a Wharton, is he? He's not like an elite level part, or that's not one of his core strengths, is his passing. Yeah, I could probably name 3 strengths probably more than his passing ability. He wasn't signed. If we were looking for passes, you won't sign Gray, is my point. He's not the guy who's your priority. Bergval, definitely a lot better at physically driving the ball. Physically he's brilliant. I remember when we first signed him, those training videos came out and he was doing some crazy things physically, but his passing ability has never been his biggest strength. Solanke, he's not like an amazing passer, as much as he's decent at holding the ball up. Again, physically, that's his main strength. And that's not what we needed at that point. We needed a lot more technical ability, especially after Ange's first season. We knew where we were lacking a bit, and we needed much different things. And yet the data, we went in a different direction with the data, it seemed, is the point.
Every season, we've always ended the season crying out for a ball-playing midfielder, a deep-line playmaker. Every year. We've never got it. And went as far to say we signed João Palhinha this summer.
Yeah.
And we can always say, João Palhinha is a good player in his own right, but he wasn't the specific player that we needed. He's exactly an example of what you're saying here.
Exactly. So I think there's a big problem, or I think we know it, we just haven't seen it but borne out in real examples there of how wrong the recruitment is at this club. And
it's a good point someone says here, by the way. The last time we signed passers was actually in Ange's first summer.
Exactly, where Lange wasn't there.
Lange wasn't there with James Madison.
That's what he's saying. That's what the guy is saying. We were getting better players when Lang wasn't there, but since he's come in, his focus is different.
Get this guy out. What is this? What? He is so bad at his job. It's unbelievable. Mm-hmm. Like, he has made such
so incompetent.
He really is.
He can't. He shouldn't be able to survive this.
He can't. He can't. He really can't. Like, seriously, he is the person the most that is ruining Spurs right now, in my opinion. He should be the number one guy to get out of this football club.
The fact that our best passer is a centre back is a damning indictment on him.
Yeah.
Damning indictment. And the fact that we only have 2 in the top 150 and they're both our centre-backs and we have no midfielders who are among our best passers, when our midfielders should be the ones making... I know centre-backs in ball-heavy teams do touch the ball a lot and pass the ball a lot, but the midfielders should be up there with some of the most passes in the team and the ones who affect the game most through passing, and yet none of our midfielders are among our top passers. None of them. And if all the criticism of Romero, I think Romero's doing so much. I think people, I know they criticise him. I understand he's not had the best season, but you've got to realise, like, he's our best passer. He's like our biggest threat in the box. He's probably our most creative player, and he has to defend to the best of his ability as well. He's basically doing everything, and it's no surprise that, you know, things slip quite often with the way our team is set up when it comes to that. Like, we put way too much on him, to be honest. And I think the fact that he's like so far and away our best passer is ridiculous. It's a joke that with the situation. No wonder he gets frustrated and he goes up front by himself, because no one else can get the ball. He has to basically pass the ball forward and then run up because no one else can progress the ball. It's ridiculous. In a functioning world, he pops the ball off to Wharton, and he can allow the team to find their way up the pitch themselves. But he's got to do it, and he's got to get up the pitch himself. The whole thing is nuts. Yeah. The whole thing is crazy. Like, the squad building is just something I've never seen before in this. And to hear, you know, look at this article and how they've gone about the recruitment. We've all known there's a problem, but now we're you know, people are realizing it. You know, journalists are realizing it, and you can see for yourself how bad the recruitment and what they're focusing on is right now. It's nuts. Yeah. Lang has to be. If
he's not gone this summer, then I don't know what to tell you, because, like, you know, all Stell's going on about is you know, getting relegated is going to force them to change, but nothing's going to change if he stays at the club. Mm-hmm. You know, if we go down to the Championship and we keep Lang at the club, then, you know, we could keep sinking even further. Genuinely, like, he is the biggest hurdle Spurs have right now. This recruitment is nothing short of embarrassing. You're talking about a multi-billion-pound industry with the best infrastructure in the Premier League when you're looking at the stadium, the training facilities, the money available. And this is the data model he comes up with? It's ridiculous.
It's, you had a manager like Ange, you know exactly how he plays. It's very clear. There's nothing ambiguous about it. He plays that way. That's the way he wants to try and play football. The fact that you don't focus on the most fundamental thing you need to play that way of football in the recruitment is insanity. Yeah. Pure insanity and the highest form of incompetence you can ever think about. The number one thing you should be looking for is ability to pass a ball. That should be like your number one focus. Then after, okay, does he pass? Yes. And then after you look at, okay, what's his physical, blah, blah, blah. But the number one thing should be passing. And if he doesn't have that, he shouldn't be considered in the recruitment. The whole thing is crazy. Obviously, you know, passing, and then how much can he run, all that kind of stuff. That also has to be considered, don't get me wrong.
Everything has to be considered.
I'm not saying, obviously he does, but like, it should be, does he, to qualify to join this team, it should be, how good can you pass? And then everything else leads on from that. If you don't clear that hurdle, you shouldn't be considered in the team, in the recruitment. Yep. It's nuts. It's nuts. Yep. It seems as though the number one thing is, how good is your physical
and you can't build a De Zerbi team without passes either.
Absolutely.
So De Zerbi and Lange, unless Lange massively changes his ways, which he's not going to, because he's a failure at Aston Villa, he's been a failure at Tottenham. So on what merit did he even get this job anyway? It's just like, De Zerbi, we need to get in this supporting director that can work with De Zerbi.
And you look at all the top teams, and you look at their midfield signings over the last few years, and all of them have very good passing abilities. Mm. They all have a good ability to you know, control games with their ability to pass. Yep. And yeah, you look at our signings, and it's like passing hasn't been even considered. It's like a secondary thought. Yeah, it's nuts.
And at the same time, Vinay and Daniel Levy are saying we need to win the Premier League and the Champions League, and they can't even sign a player that can pass.
It's insane. It's insane. But look, it's an interesting article. It's on ESPN if you want to read it. And I think it just lays out how bad and how incompetent our recruitment strategy has been.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just another thing to get angry about today. But we'll be back tomorrow, people. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Massive big up to Stephen Coolcup for coming on today. And we shall see you very, very soon.